welcome back to the Not Carrie Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I'm recapping episode 8 of I May Destroy You. This video in the show contains very strong themes and content surrounding sexual assault, so trigger warning if that is a topic that you are sensitive to. Now is a good time to dip out. I will not take it personally. I know I am aggressively late with this recap. You can clearly see I have a different background. I relocated to Atlanta for a few weeks just so that I could be close to friends and family. I had a few friends lose their parents, not COVID related, but it just felt like a good time to come home because being in isolation by myself in my 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, which I absolutely love, but it's been literal months. So I felt like now was a good time to come and be around some people who I need to be around. So I'll be in Atlanta for a few weeks. Logistically, it took me a minute to find somewhere comfortable where I could record. So I'm here with you guys. Forgive me. I'm back on track after this. So I felt like this episode of I May Destroy You was very appropriately named. It was called Line Spectrum Border. And the opening monologue, Arabella is at her group and she's talking about, I felt like it was really, really powerful, where she's talking about how predators live in the gray area along the spectrum, along the border between what's okay and what isn't. And they kind of tend to exploit that there is more nuance to sexual assault, to consent, than what we've always been taught. And when you call them out on it, they plant these seeds of self-doubt. I really have a hard time with that, even outside of sexual assault or personal space. When you try to establish a boundary with someone who has no boundaries or isn't used to people enforcing boundaries with them, it's really easy for them to make you question yourself, to make you feel like you've done something wrong by calling them out, or they'll even kind of try to make it seem like you're saying that they're a bad person by saying, hey, I really don't like that you said or did that. Example, I have a coworker who I actually have a really great working relationship with, and jokingly one day I said to her, oh, relax, calm down. And she was like, please don't say that to me. And I was taken aback by it because I know that I didn't mean any harm by it. I wasn't saying it in the way that we like tell women to calm down. I didn't actually feel like she was hysterical. I just knew that she was about to go somewhere in the conversation that it was like I picked up on her misunderstanding before she did in the conversation that we were having. And my first instinct was to say, no, that's not what I meant. But I took a step back and I just said, oh, I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out. It takes a certain amount of humility to be able to acknowledge that even if you didn't intend to, you can offend, you can hurt, you can trigger, you can do things that make other people feel uncomfortable, which I think is what this entire episode explored. And when we call people out or we say to people, this is how I want to be treated, this is what I would like to happen moving forward. Like I said, if that person does not have the humility or even the concern for you to acknowledge that, those are relationships that you really have to evaluate. If this person is not capable or willing of doing what I need or am requesting that they do in order for me to feel comfortable, is this someone who I need to associate with? So this entire episode was centered around a few things. Number one, I think we got to see how it's entirely possible for people to be both victims and, do I want to say predators, for lack of a better word? This was something that people had a really hard time grasping when it came to the R. Kelly revelations that people suddenly had because of the documentaries, where it was like, well, he was physically abused. That doesn't mean that just because he has been or is a victim of something that he can't also hurt other people. So this entire series, for 7 episodes up until this 8th one, we've seen Kwame be sexually assaulted. We saw Arabella get sexually assaulted twice, and seen how that has kind of, spun her life out of control. And in this episode, we witnessed them both violate other people's boundaries. The second thing that I think this episode explores is just how casual sex can be when there are so many things that I think you actually need to know about a person before having sex with them. Even if it's a one-night stand, people need to be able to make an informed decision about whether or not they want to give consent. So I also, y'all know T is not my favorite person right now. I'm over T. I think that she's being very overzealous. She has literally no awareness of the fact that the things that she keeps saying about, what is the white girl's name? It just fell out of my head. Theo? Maybe? Theo? I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names. I try to take notes and then I just forget. I'm sorry. But she called her, let me see, a controlling hypocrite. Girl, the call is coming from inside the house. That's you. So I was really devastated. T and Arabella go to the police station. Both of the detectives are pregnant, and they're being really, really cheeky about being there, given that the subject matter is really heavy. And I think that that's intentional. I think that when it's hard to confront, when you have to confront hard emotions or hard situations, it can feel easier to rely on humor or sarcasm. Hello, I too. But we come to find out that despite, the samples that were taken, they don't have a suspect. They got really close and then they didn't. And this triggers Arabella to then manipulate T into getting her a plane ticket. I was really pissed, number one, that Arabella used her maybe position as a victim and as T's friend to manipulate her into getting her a ticket to go to Italy to see this terrible man who completely abandoned her when she was at her absolute worst, made her feel terrible about herself, about her life, victim blamed the hell out of her. And T really didn't want to do this, but Arabella completely violated the trust of their friendship by saying well, you're not creating a safe space for me because you won't let me do this. This is where dealing with people who have mental health issues or who are dealing with a traumatic crisis, this is where it gets tricky. This is where it's I want to support you, but I don't want to help you make a bad decision either. So she goes to Italy with no money. I mean, she has nothing. I also wonder what the pink wig signifies for her, that she put that back on. I felt like she, started off the series wearing this pink wig, and then she goes and gets all her hair cut off, and then she also does this dark wig, and it seemed like she was taking on this new identity. And I think by her putting back on this pink wig, it was kind of her regressing a bit. And I had so much secondhand embarrassment that, number one, you've gone to another country. This man don't know you coming. You ain't got no money. You're hawking over the taxi and how much it's gonna cost. And, you're walking in the dark. You've snuck into this man's house. Actually, you've broken in because you knew where he kept his key. And he came in and was completely freaked out, but was trying to play it cool. And I was horrified just at that. You've done an international pop-up. I don't even believe in popping up on people who live in the same city as you. You know who you can pop up on? People who you live in the same house as them. Do not do that to people. I don't care if that person has upset you. I don't care if they've hurt you. If that person has not been willing to even talk to you on the phone, why would you violate their boundary, whether they did something horrible to you or not? It's still a boundary. Don't show up in nobody's house. Girl, is you crazy? This man is also a drug dealer. What are you doing? So she heads down to get this pizza that she ordered for them because she remembered that he loved this certain kind of pizza. And it's girl, how you gonna pay for it? And I knew that when she left, he wasn't gonna let her back in because he did not look overjoyed to see her. It looked like she looked crazy and he didn't want to trigger her crazy anymore. So she comes back upstairs. She's making a huge scene. She's like, you know what? I'll leave, but I've left my passport in there. He slides it under the door. The shade of how that passport went under that door, I was like, oh, bitch. So she continues making this scene, banging on his door, and he pulled a gun on her. And I was just like, this could not have possibly gone any worse. She completely violated this man's boundaries. He was absolutely a dick to her. He was absolutely unsupportive. He was not kind to her. But this man was always ambivalent about their relationship, ambivalent at best about their relationship. He hadn't been returning texts or phone calls. He gave you no indication that he wanted you or that he wanted you here. But you felt like, oh, if I could just talk to him. It's a huge violation. You don't do that. So then she no longer has any data on her phone to make any phone calls. So she just walks into the ocean, which I'm gonna tell y'all. So one of my favorite comedians is John Mulaney, and he has this whole bit about the struggle of like putting in passwords and you can't remember a password, and then when you put the password in, this robot, being your computer, asks you to prove that you're not a robot. And he's like, the concept of that makes me want to walk into the ocean. So whenever I get like I'm over something or I'm over a person, I'm like, you could honestly just go take a walk into the ocean. So the fact that she actually walked into that ocean, I was like, oh shit. Yeah, Arabella just, again, the healing process, recovering from trauma, especially back-to-back traumas like she did, it's not linear. It doesn't always make sense to anyone, let alone yourself. And maybe this is a part of her process, is also, being a person who is taking on, she's a hypocrite in this regard. There's a huge difference between breaking into someone's house because you want to confess their love for them and someone raping you. I don't want to say that those things are equal, but there is something to be said that it's very easy to blur that line. Especially when you think about the way that we've been socialized to express love and these like grand romantic gestures. When you think about movies, they actually are just really huge violations of people's privacy. Like if I told you to leave me alone, don't show up at my house with a boombox. Like, girl, what? So we also have to dive into Kwame's situation. Y'all know that I am obsessed with Kwame. He's my favorite character. He's finally revealed to both Arabella and T that he was assaulted, that he wasn't successful at reporting it, and he tells them that he thinks he wants to try to date women because sexuality is a spectrum. Once again, going back to the title of the episode. And they aren't necessarily very supportive of it. It's like, nigga, you don't want to be with no women. But he's on this dating app. He starts dating this white girl. I already knew it was going to be something to him dating this white girl. I wasn't feeling her from jump. I find it deeply uncomfortable when people say, oh, I'm really into black guys, or I'm really into like this specific like kind of person, because it feels like there's a fetishizing element to it, or this like exoticism. I don't really rock with that. So when she said, oh, I'm really into black guys, I was like, girl, relax, keep it in your pants. So they have sex, they're listening to music. She reveals that she's not comfortable saying nigga, but she is kind of comfortable saying the F word that British people use for cigarette. And she starts down this path of like, well, if we're talking about appropriation, the gay men appropriating the femininity of women, like that's a thing. And it's like, girl, that is not a thing. Like, the way that we present our gender is a social construct. Like, if you look back, I always find it really fascinating that people can't understand when we talk about gender identity as being a spectrum. People are like huge fans of Prince and could accept that Prince was a very feminine man, but you can't understand how some men just want to dress pretty similarly to Prince, or even to the way that like funk and soul singers used to dance back in the day. Like, have you ever seen some old pictures of Ronald Isley? But people have a really hard time nowadays grasping the concept that men can sometimes be feminine presenting, but this is all a social construct. Anyway, I'm going down a tangent. I found her to be an annoying ass bitch. But Kwame reveals that he's gay, and she gets freaked out, tells him that he's an asshole. He starts crying. She does not understand why he's crying because she doesn't know his tea. She doesn't know what he's just gone through. And I had to have a conversation with one of my friends. I always want to, speak to a few people who are actually a part of the LGBTQ plus community, because I want to be sure that I'm understanding everything especially when we get into the bi, poly, that part of the spectrum, and trans as well. What is a person's obligation to disclose? And there has been this debate as far as trans people are concerned. They're like, well, why should they have to tell people? Why should they have to say, like, trans women are women? Absolutely, you get no complaints from me on that. But I do wonder, if you aren't disclosing to people that you are a trans woman, you're hiding a really big part of yourself from a potential partner. And that's something that I'm very big on, is vulnerability. I don't think that you need to walk around wearing a sign saying, hey, I'm trans. But I do wonder, at what point are you obligated, or is it socially acceptable for you to disclose or not to disclose? So in Kwame's situation, when was he supposed to disclose that he's gay, that he's experimenting with this woman who, by all accounts, he was trying to have like a casual encounter with, I guess, just to kind of test the waters? And my friend who I talked to about this, who's a gay Black man, was like, I think people should always disclose. People need to know what they're getting into, especially if a person does not want, if a person is not comfortable being with or dating a person who's bi, they should be able to make an informed decision. And I do agree with that. And so once again, Kwame, who has been a victim, has now violated someone else's boundaries, even though his intention was, I want to see what's out there for me. I don't feel comfortable dating men right now. I would like to see if I can be comfortable dating a woman. And he fully violated this woman, who is a terrible person. This white woman and Biagio are both terrible people who also were violated. So you have to be able to hold two conflicting ideas in your head at the same time. But I hope that people really took in and understood what this episode was exploring. And again, I'm wondering, when we talk about consent in all of its forms and the very, nuanced parts of it, at what point, and we also want to talk about vulnerability and honesty. How casual can casual sex be when there are so many things that you would need or want to know about a person to make an informed decision about whether or not you want to have sex with them? Whether you want to be with a person or not, you still need to have some semblance of conversation about where you're coming from, what your expectations are, what you're willing to do, what you aren't. And I think that these are conversations that we should be having more often. I really enjoyed this episode. It really kind of turned our characters upside down for us. And I am completely freaked out by Arabella and this international pop-up, and I hope homegirl gets some money at some point. This was an interesting episode. I think we only have 2 more episodes to go for the season, so I'm excited to see where they take things. And you guys drop down in the comments, let me know what you thought of the episode. Be sure to share and subscribe to my channel. I will be back on time to discuss the next episode, so thank you for joining me. Bye.